In 1979, Iran was a beautiful place. It was friends with the West, and something drastically changed.
Iran had seen better days before 1979, and now obviously it's just ruled by not good people.
What caused it? Power.
Going through struggle is a source of empathy. Like it's really getting a good grasp of empathy. And if you have absolute power, then you may not have gone through those struggles.
Why does absolute power corrupt absolutely? And can, in today's woke society, can two men adamantly disagree on a podcast but still get along? So let's just start with where you're born, mate. Where are you from? Are you born in? Where are you from? Yeah.
I was born in Iran originally, actually.
Oh, cool.
So Tehran, moved to New Zealand when I was 9. That was a bit of an educational interruption. I had a stutter, which still comes up and goes sometimes.
Oh yeah.
This is why I did what I did in the previous career, essentially, just to get over my stutter. And yeah, mostly spent a lot of time in New Zealand. Lived part-time and full-time in the U.S. for a little under a decade. Part of the family's from there, so yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, Tehran's beautiful. I wanted to go. I made a mistake of going from Israel, and they didn't approve my visa. I assume that's probably because I came from Israel. Israel doesn't give you stamps anymore.
No, well, I mean, Iran had seen better days before 1979, and now obviously it's just ruled by not good people.
What are your thoughts on that? Because, I mean, like you probably didn't expect to speak about Iran. You were there when you were 9, but like, it was quite progressive, like was it 1979?
Golden years.
Yeah.
It was definitely golden years. Every foundational societal metric you can think of, it was moving in a positive direction, whether it was minorities getting the right to vote, women voting, women having being judges, ministers. I'm not sure if they were judges, but they're definitely ministers. So the educational minister was a woman. It was progressive in the bestest of ways. Obviously, it has some problems. That's a conversation of its own. But the reason it fell, the country, I like to see it as the best way it could be put is that it fell in 1979. It got reorganized into a tyrannical religious dictatorship. The reason
Go into this, bro. Like, I'm interested. Fucking, everything's working.
Yeah, so it fell. Where was I? I had
it fell in 1979. Tyrannical, religious-led. Women were ministers, but maybe not judges. I was listening.
And after that point, I mean, the slow decay of the country put aside, is that they essentially killed or imprisoned everyone who was adding value to the country, whether culturally, whether it was an engineer or a military general. I mean, when the war happened after 1980, there were literally no competent military leaders to lead the fifth, some would call fifth strongest army in the world. So it was just left in chaos. And
wow, what made you guys leave when you were 9?
Besides not wanting to live under the reign of the Islamic Republic.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Well, but they weren't coming for you. You know what I mean? Like you weren't like political exiles. You just didn't want to be there anymore.
No, I mean, there's an old saying goes like, look at a person and look at their friends. Look at who the country's friends were before 1979. We had good relations with the West, with Israel, with America, and look at who our friends were since then. Not the friendliest or most democratic powers in the world.
Yeah, Jesus, wow. Like there was no. Well, apparently, I feel like I should talk about it on the podcast because there seems to be, and it might be a little tinfoil hat. That there is America has a plan to go to war with Iran.
As Iranians, we think it's the least costly way for the country to get rid of the Islamic Republic. However, when I don't think that that is a serious plan anywhere in the White House or Pentagon, just because how the other wars haven't worked out in the past 20 years. So, to go to war, you need a mobilization of 200,000 troops, and you have to sell it. It'd be hard selling this to the American public after, the experience of the past 20 years.
Well, they lap it up. So it's interesting. So, if you look at, Iraq, Afghanistan, you're like, fuck, this has got anything to do with market. Look at Afghanistan, Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. They went in there. No one gives a fuck now. They just slaughtered all these civilians.
They didn't. No, it was I hold a different opinion on this.
Okay, good.
Firstly, Saddam Hussein used weapons of mass destruction on the Kurds. If that's not a reason for war, I don't know what is.
Okay, valid.
Put aside the 300,000 to 500,000 unmasked grave they discovered when they liberated Iraq. So there were, and then after that, I think it was in Syria that Assad sort of released all the radical Islamists to essentially pump them into Iraq, so they're not, so America doesn't become a threat for Syria. So the insurgencies was a consequence of that invasion, but I don't think it was something that America. I'll word this very, very carefully. It was a lot of internal and regional strifes that just came to a boiling point and the lid was essentially open when America went in.
Yeah, interesting. Because I hear stories from Robert Kennedy talking about his father and his uncle, and like say the Cuban Missile Crisis. They were brought in. They're going to put in these insurgents that were going to cause a bit of chaos and overthrow, Cuba, and they basically pivoted in such a way that it pushed him to make a decision. And you think about how much money is being invested by lobbyists from these major, private military-industrial complex to the politicians. And you look at places like Ukraine as well. They're not pursuing peace; they're pursuing the expenditure of weapons.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of forces in a lot of lobbying forces in any democratic country. And Eisenhower, who was the general of NATO in the 1950s, who when he became president actually considered a demotion, not a promotion, warned America about the military-industrial complex. But at the end of the day, you still have to sell it to the public, who are the voters. So there's a lot of force. There are lobbyers. There are. I think who was it? It was Sam Harris that says, in the halls of power, there are sadists and there are saints and everything in between, and all the and similar influences behind them as well, in a sense. But the political tools are there to make sure that you have to try really, really hard to sell bad ideas to the public, and most of the time they don't buy them that much.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I feel like I actually we're just gonna be disagreeing a whole podcast. It's gonna be fun. I'm enjoying it. I don't mind being wrong.
Yeah,
that's okay. Because you're
right. I'm right. Let's be right together. It's a Donald Trump conference. We're all successful businessmen. Wow,
yeah.
This has been so productive.
Yeah, look, boom. Oh, everyone's my friend. Have you seen this a clip of Trump where it's it lists all the things he's good at? I'm the most effective communicator.
It's literally everything.
He talks it into existence. He's an interesting cat.
Yeah.
I'd love to interview him. I want to because it's hard to see who he is. You know what I'm saying? Who is he as a man apart from the gimmicks and promotional part?
Just an insecure little man who hates to read and gets bored really, really easily, but wants to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, it's an interesting summary. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I was just where I was disagreeing is I actually think swaying the public isn't that hard. Because
sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, it depends. I think if you, there's a good example. Carl Jung, he's one of the pioneers of psychology, let's say, and he predicted World War II because of the loss of the individuality of of people in society. So they were part of groups. They lost their own feelings and couldn't express it because the group identity was assigned to them. And then there was also a lack of resources from the Treaty of Versailles. So they felt, one, they didn't have enough resources. Two, they had a lot of pain, and then they were projecting onto someone else. Oh, he's making movements. He's going to disagree.
No, I'm listening.
Yeah. So I think if you can tap into the primal desire to blame someone for our own inadequacies, the political playbook of blaming, immigrants or blaming this or blaming that, or weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, or Putin is evil. Yeah. And then you can mobilize people into action because they don't actually have to address their own pain.
Yeah, politics of fear and division and opportunism is dangerous, and it's very, very it's just a poison for society when really, really smart people become opportunists. It's really what happens in Iran in 1979, where despite the improvements in society, there wasn't much political freedom for years. So when the one monarch at the time opened the valves up a little bit, really smart opportunistic opposition leaders came up and said, well, the country is on fire, we're dying, our wealth is being sold, and everything else is history. Sort of the first sparks of the Islamic Revolution. They led the first sparks. And yeah, you're right. I mean, that's politicians in America do that as well. They become opportunists, and they craft words very carefully and convincingly, and they end up selling sometimes really, really bad ideas as well. And when you have a weak political opposition, those forces really start to be effective, unfortunately. It's what happened in Iran. Things were going really, really well, but because we didn't have a good opposition, we didn't have an organized opposition, the worst elements of the opposition party took leadership, and the rest is history. Same in America, or a bunch of the ideas you just spoke about. When you don't have a good, an effective Democratic Party, then the worst elements of the Republicans end up being effective. Or when you don't have an effective Republican Party, the worst elements of the Democratic Party end up being, unfortunately, effective.
What do you think?
That was a digress. I don't know if
No, it's good. I'm enjoying this. It's got nothing to do with marketing. Well, he does marketing, by the way, people, just as well.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah. Well, this is more interesting. No one gives a fuck. Like, everyone sort of gets what you do, but they just need to trust you. You know what I mean? So, interesting thing about power then. So, do you think absolute power corrupts absolutely? So it sounds as though having an opposing force is what keeps people in check, as opposed to the actual person keeping themselves in check?
I do think going through struggle is a source of empathy. Like it's really getting a good grasp of empathy. And if you have absolute power, then you may not have gone through those struggles. Therefore, you're not going to, empathy is can be experienced intellectually. But if you got absolute power, you've probably never been through struggle to understand, to walk a mile in the other shoes, in a sense. So you may end up making decisions that are harsh or not kind, or not fully in touch with what your everyday person goes through.
That's interesting. I see that with CEOs. Like, the further they get away from the plight of the foot soldier, and then the greater priority they add to their stresses because of the lack of feeling they have towards that person. It's interesting that I never thought of it from an empathy point. I thought of it kind of like almost like a kid that has no boundaries. Like, they're allowed to keep going, and they don't get caught, and they get reinforced, as opposed to they empathetic, which is an interesting take, which makes sense.
Because you have smart people around you, essentially looking out for you, and when you make mistakes, you don't really even realize those mistakes because they're easily course corrected. People look out for you, and yeah, that is a source of corruption, I think. So it's definitely one of the most tested theories in human history. That's more or less we've all agreed society that let's not give someone too much power. As slow as democracy is, it's the worst system, but better than every other system that we had. Winston Churchill said himself. So yeah, I mean it's hard to disagree with that. Seeing how history played out has played out.
Wow, that's random. You're randomly knowledgeable on this. Like we just fucking went in on it. We didn't know you were done.
Well, the reason I touch point on empathy is that every time I've been very harsh or judgmental on someone and about something, and I've experienced a similar thing myself. Most of the time, I was thinking, "Can you swear on this podcast?"
Yeah, you can say what the fuck you want.
Yeah, good stuff. So I'm like,
just gotta own it.
Yeah. and then when I experienced it myself, I'm like, man, I was a fucking asshole. This stuff is difficult and hard. Why was I thinking the way I was and being so judgmental and thinking the guy should just get over it? This is just not easy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like
so it's most of it's from me being an asshole in the past, where being super judgmental.
Yeah, no, I'm a victim of that too. Like so I get really upset like when people play victim because I play victim my whole life.
Yeah,
like oh poor me and blame others, and then I'll also be like. I'd be able to craft a beautiful story about why I didn't do it, as opposed to being confronted with the reality that it was me. So, on empathy, so there's different routes. I do want to go on the stuttering route as well, just because people will get value out of it. And then
definitely, because it affects 1% of the population. It gets lonely. You think you can never get out of it, but there is a light out. There is a way out.
Okay, let's go back to you're stuttering at school. You move over here, probably don't speak the language that well.
No,
and you're stuttering, so you might be an outcast, or maybe you made friends pretty easily. I'm not sure.
No, I actually didn't really have any friends until I was like 12. So I moved here when I was 9, and couldn't really socialize until I was 12, and even then it was difficult. So culturally, it was a really hard thing for me to get. And I had a stutter since I was a kid. I struggled over the phone. We first spoke over a phone when we didn't know each other. That would have for me been equivalent to. I don't want to. I'm being a bit dramatic here.
Yeah, but be dramatic,
but equivalent to being the first soldier on Normandy's beach on D-Day.
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
that's how terrifying it was for me. Up until I was, I suppose, 28. So I'm 33 now. So yeah, I mean, and when you live with a problem well into your late 20s, you think it's going to be with you for the rest of your life, but there's a way out, and you can get better. I don't have any scientific reasoning for this. It's just a feeling and personal experience and complete anecdote. So take it as how you want.
All you 1%ers. Yeah, fair enough. Well, what was the experience as you went through? So people would give you this advice, or why are you stuttering, bro? Like, just get over it, or like, what is the experience of like a stutter as a kid that fucking, and you had no mates for 3 years? That's fucking.
Yeah, I think what for psychologists say effective socialization, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, is very, very important in your early childhood and early and teenagehood, etc. So there was a gap there, but I got really, really fortunate because the people I met, the people who became my friends, were very, very understanding in spite of all my quirks and awkwardities and weirdness and all that stuff. So yeah, they were just so understanding of it. So that was what really, I think, saved me and made me have a happy teenagehood when I could have not. I think. What
was your first friend? You don't say their name, but like, do you remember the first time you like pulled it off?
Yeah. Oh, and I was. This is an interesting story. So I was I don't think he minds me saying his name. William, man, shout out William.
Shout out.
Amplify Electric. So yeah, we were 12, and I was hanging out in school. I didn't have many people to hang out with, and I knew his girlfriend really, really well.
Oh, that's a bad start, isn't it?
Oh no, we were just friends. Like, she was just, I was 12, we were 11 or 12, but she,
hand
you know, you know, one of those girls at school that are just really nice to everyone, and
yeah.
just friends, you know, and even to the awkward kid, she's
Wow.
nice. So I knew her, and then they went out, they dated, they were going steady at that time. So I think I just saw them and I said hi, and I said, yeah, all my friends are at detention, quote unquote. So we started hanging out, and we became friends since. And Will was actually sort of like the glue that sort of got the group together through intermediate, and then we went off to different high schools, but we all stuck together and hung out every weekend through high school, even though I had different high schools from my friends. But we were just hanging out every weekend, and
Jesus.
Yeah.
Did you had to like learn shit? Like you come here, everything's completely different, and then you're learning a language and you're stuttering. Like, was there like you had to learn how to socialize? What was your biggest like limiting belief that people like me, or you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all those insecurities. Am I weird? Am I, I can't string two words together just because I don't know the language well, and when I do, I stutter at it. So it's like every single opposition you can think of to get effective communication out, and we need to communicate as human beings.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like Jordan Peterson used an analogy. I don't know what it was in regard to, but he said, it's like giving a monkey what is it? What are those?
A banana? No,
some basic tool, and asking him to fix a military helicopter. I think, like, having your school interrupted and learning a new language when you're 9 and 10 and being expected to keep up with school and find friends and all that stuff. It's a little bit like that. It's like, okay. I'm a monkey and I'm giving a bit primitive tool. I'm supposed to fix a military helicopter. Catch up with them.
Wow.
Catch up with school, learn language, make friends, and do academically well, and do well in sport. It's a bit of a tall order.
Jesus. Did you have that like a bit of like immigration pressure of, hey, you got to be good at school, but then you're not good at school?
No, my family were my family were like super understanding. Like there's a bit of that cliche of you're either a doctor or a lawyer and an engineer, nothing. But it's all tongue in cheek. They're very very understanding. No, none of those.
Okay, so it's just the no friends felt like a bit of a weirder.
Yeah.
But you worked it out.
Precisely, yeah.
You found other ways.
But you debug it, yeah.
Yeah, you debug it.
You debug life.
So then you're like, oh yeah, fuck commercial law. That's where I'll go. Communication as a job, huh?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I wasn't my one sort of saving grace was that Iran schooling is very very difficult. So we were probably 3 years ahead of my grade in New Zealand at least.
Random.
So some of that discipline and hard work helped me in a bit, but eventually I got lazy here through school too. Didn't go to school much, didn't attend class, so really really damaged my literacy and numeracy, I think. Even though I was more advanced when I came here in terms of your maths and stuff, but at some point
you fit in.
At some point it'll catch up to you, and then you're gonna have to work for it, which I didn't. But yeah, by the time I was 16, I said, okay, look, I kind of stutter. I'm not too comfortable with my math or literacy. So doing a degree in law and finance probably helps out both those areas out, and that was very strategic because, like, med school, it's not like the movies. You don't just wake up one morning and decide to go to med school. It's mostly a very planned out career path, encouraged by your parents from an early age. There is a genuine personal ambition there as well. You got to be like a super smart person, incredibly smart too, not focus on school and then go to med school and make it work. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah, but law and
you can wing it. It's open book, isn't it?
Law is is malleable in a sense. Yeah. Finance is too, in a bit. So I picked up those two degrees. I took school a bit more seriously in the past few years. Managed to scrape into university. struggled somewhat in uni, did better in some papers, worse in others, but yeah.
Got it through.
Got through.
And then you're doing it as a job, and you're like, this is soulless, or what? Like, when did you, or you loved it, and you're like, oh, I'll just start a business.
Yeah, I always wanted to be in well, it's like a what is it? It's the adolescent definition of an entrepreneur. You just know you just like having a company, but you don't know how it's formed, or what you got to do with it, or where's the economics in it. When you get a bit more mature, like, okay, I have to add value. If I take $1, I have to make sure the client gets significantly more money than the money they're paying me. In a sense, that's how you stay in business. But I said, to me, I can honestly say I was always like, okay, I'm going to practice this for a few years just to make sure I've done it. No one's going to attack me with later on saying, hey, if you went to uni, you could have done such and such and such. Look, I went to uni, I got my degree, I did a few years of work, now I can go and follow my own heart. When I started practicing, that somewhat got diluted in a bit. But after about, I suppose 2 years of clerkships and 2-3 years of actual practice, etc., for various reasons, I got back on the original path. Yeah. So I ditched law and I started my own company.
Yeah. New one too.
Yeah.
Year and a half?
We started working in July 2021 and launched in November 2021.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when we had our first client.
Oh, that's when it launched. So you were out there hustling for months. Oh, no, July. And then August is quick.
We could have had actually clients as soon as August, but I just purposefully said no.
Wow.
Just because I didn't know. I
didn't know what you're doing.
I think.
Kinda.
Yeah, we were, to be honest, better than I think we were, to be honest.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
Far, far better. But I didn't know what I didn't know. At least I want to be aware. It's the unknown unknowns that always haunt me. So the known unknowns are a bit more manageable and controllable. As long as you're aware of that, then you can at least render the right advice, and that can say, look, we don't have the expertise for this. Or go to this company and go to this marketing firm, or you're not even you're not even long enough in the process to really think about marketing right now.
Fair.
It's easy to think about the pretty stuff in the room.
That is. I've been known to follow the pretty things.
I do that all the time.
I think that's the thing. It's like you have these entrepreneurial people that can face the risk and adapt creatively, and they think outside the box. But getting them to stick at one thing, because like Alex Hormozi always says, one avatar, one product, one channel.
Yeah,
and don't change it until you get to 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. I can't really disagree with that. He's right. I mean, it just takes so much work and time and experience and expertise to add value.
Yeah.
And that's just with one product or one service. It's going to be a fool's endeavor to try to think you can do this, 5-6 times. Even Elon Musk himself, he started with one company. Used it as a pedestal, obviously sold it for a large sum of money. But then by the time he got to Tesla and SpaceX, and they had their own, dark ages as well in terms of financials and being financially viable. But by the time he got there, he had a whole bunch of he had the connections, experience, and the money to just hire very, very smart people to be known of the unknowns. So don't just jump into a car company and a rocket company.
Well, it's great. Yeah, his whole journey is fascinating. I'm learning that more and more, like the ability to relinquish control to allow someone to be the talent that you need them to be. I mean, that's because you think about it, like you leave your job so that because you don't want to tell you what the fuck to do, and then you get the opportunity to do whatever the fuck you want, and then you get rewarded for doing that, but then you have to give it all away in order to reach the next step. You need to give the opportunity for the next person to actually grow and make up their own ideas, and you support them.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I mean, it sounds well an abstract.
Reality is fucking trusting people, bro.
Reality is, especially when a company is in its infancy, you start trusting too much, things just go wrong.
Okay, interesting.
Or they can go wrong. And especially when you're in infancy, it is far harder to recover from mistakes than when you reach maturity.
What's the worst mistake or biggest challenge you've had to face since you started?
Worse.
I ran out of money 4 times, and then had to get money on Friday.
Thankfully, no. We've been quite cautious on that.
Okay.
Worst mistake, probably just agreeing to work with clients that I shouldn't have agreed to. I think.
Yeah. How do you mitigate that now? How have you learned not to do that now?
Well, you just price that in your.
You price them out, make it expensive enough that they won't even reach out. Or
I try not to do that. I don't.
You probably will though. Give it 5 years.
No, I mean, to be honest, like if someone wants help, you sit down and you talk with them for an hour. You want to help them out in a sense. And I always think back to the experience I had with my physiotherapist. A few years ago, I was so injured, I could barely walk in a day.
Oh, right.
RSI, repetitive back was from sitting down too much. I couldn't sit down for more than an hour, which affected my law career quite a bit as well because it's hard. You're starting at 9 o'clock and by 10 a.m., your back is just is an incredible amount of pain from your back, and then you're supposed to last at least another 8 hours, till 5:30. And law, to be honest, it doesn't finish at 5:30. You probably need to work a little bit more on that as well. And that affected me quite a bit. But then I went to my physio, and she's just like the smartest person I've met. Just honestly, if I'm half as good as her in life, I'll consider myself more successful than I could ever have been.
Wow, plug her, surely she can plug.
She just she gave me the gift of health, and she was patient, she was understanding. I didn't always do my homework. She was really, really good. So sometimes when I sit down with clients, I want to give back what my physio and what people who've helped me in my life have done for me when they've had less reason to do so. It can't all just be chasing the green. We're all here to fix a problem. Just got to do that as much as we can and make sure we can still earn a good living from it and be happy when we do it. It's important that if you agree to jobs, if you undercharge for a job, you're not going to do well in it, even if you think you are going to if you're going to do well in it. Because at the end of the day, you're just there grinding away and like, fuck, I'm just doing this for $5 an hour, really, based on the hours I'm trying to put in. And that's just demotivating. So that's I suppose I'm not too sure if I'm giving advice. That's my 2 cents there. Is just make sure that what you're charging for is going to make you happy when you're sitting down there at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., grinding away, doing research, and trying to get the campaign or whatever it is to fruition, or whatever it is you're engaged with to fruition.
Well, I think it's a balance. When you first start, you don't have that much belief in yourself, and if you have too much belief in yourself, you might be in denial arrogance. And you might fail. Yeah. So you have this low self-worth, let's say, and then you got to charge a higher price. And it's a bit of an art, but the reality is if you charge a higher price, you can do more for your client and provide better service. They're more emotionally invested because they're putting more down, and you're dealing with people that aren't scraping together dollars and cents, so they're a lot easier to deal with as a rule of thumb. But I also agree that you should give without expectation, and you should just, if someone reaches out, try and help them and value. And you might not think that benefits you, but it will benefit you emotionally. It would also benefit you through word of mouth, through them sharing it. They might not be the person, but they'll talk to someone.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like karma or giving back, or how do you view the world?
Karma's bullshit.
You think karma's bullshit?
Sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone or if you guys believe it, but it's hard to look at history and think karma actually exists.
Oh, because it's dark, or what? Because it's dark?
Well,
a lot of evil?
Karma, from my understanding, karma, Good and evil. I don't think it's a. I'm a materialistic person, and I'm not a.
You're not spiritual.
I'm
You're
not
not one of the
spiritual.
universe. You're not
No.
white ochre on your forehead to channel the fourth dimension.
No, when people talk about positive energy, I get they just lose me, to be honest. No, I try to be understanding, but still, like I'm like, well, there's so many cool stuff that we haven't got answers for. Why create new imaginary problems that are no evidence, or at least it seems imaginative. But yeah, I think my understanding of karma came about when we lived in small tribes. So if you did bad, or if you're a dickhead, or if you did deeds, or that just wasn't in the best interest of the people around you, that act came back to you quickly because people knew each other. So then you would have ended up at some point needing to rely on someone that knew what you did to someone else that you could have done more for and you didn't, or etc. But now that we live in a huge society, people can be charlatans and frauds and just go through different, I think Jordan Peterson goes hierarchies, and sometimes never ever get caught.
That's true.
Yeah, because you live in cities of hundreds of thousands, millions of people, etc. Obviously, there's a repercussion for that person because they have to go through. They have a high turnover of relationships. That can't be easy.
Yeah.
But it's just it's hard for them to experience their own karma, and sometimes you get just really, really smart people doing really, really bad things. They can word stuff quite convincingly. I mean, I can think of a few politicians and few leaders that
Plug them. No.
yeah,
no, don't.
they're just
Charlatans, huh? Full of shit.
they're charlatans. They're just sitting there. They're just looking at their tweet. They're saying stuff that's just inflammatory and opportunistic. I don't think they're gonna.
You see everything in rainbows and sunshine. Mate. I can sense it. You just walk around skipping. I can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, like you talk about karma. I see these guys. They went to Harvard. They had great jobs. They're in a position of power now. When they leave it, they're gonna probably end up with partnerships or being in other positions of influence. I don't think they're gonna ever have bad run-ins with karma, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, no, we have different views, eh?
Yeah.
Like,
I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, me too.
I hope you're right. I mean, if someone does a bad shit, I hope there's
consequences
and they get what they deserve. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I agree that from a material standpoint, you can be a cunt and get away with it.
Yeah.
And you have turnover people, and you keep going, and you just be convincing enough, charge enough. You keep going. The thing where I think it's I sort of see life as it has a natural order. Like I'm not religious in any way. Atheist as fuck. And,
I'm atheist as well.
Yeah, I thought so.
I used to be. I was brought up in a Muslim society, but we're an agnostic atheist, and
now you committed
Christopher Hitchens. I'm like, yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense.
Christopher Hitchens, bro, he's a beast.
What I wouldn't give to see him opine on what's happening. Today.
Oh yeah, no, it's 2 cents on the wokeness today. Yeah. I see. It might not be a direct consequence in society, but I feel like there's a cost to their humanity. There's a cost to them. So, like, if there's periods of time where I've lied, lots of times.
Yeah.
Now I'm more brutally honest, but lie maybe 1% of times. Yeah. But then I became very apt at lying to myself because of me lying to others. And then I couldn't have genuine and meaningful connections. I would have a low view of myself because I never addressed the things that were wrong. So I think there is some level of consequence from the outside. It might not be apparent, but if you do harm, it seems to have some sort of impact either mentally, socially, or materialistically.
Yeah, I mean, if that's how you define karma, sure.
Oh, you agree? Yeah. Watch out.
But I don't think that's how...
First time on our podcast.
But if that's how you define... But I don't think classically that's how karma is defined.
Okay, now fair. Go on, hit me. I might not know the word, actually.
I've never looked up the definition either.
But you're telling me that's not what it is.
Yeah, but I've just never heard... I've just never heard of a consequence of karma being the mental impact your bad behavior, your bad deeds has on you. It's always been people treat you the same as you treat others, that's true to a point. Yeah. But if you're doing wrong by someone and then some stranger comes back later, does something equally as wrong for you, that's deserving, that has no connection with that first person you're wrong to, which is more or less what people understand.
Okay, see, that's a bit fruity, but
yeah, karma's being that's the one I'm kind of
you're against.
Quarrel with. Well, I'm not against it. Just
fuck them.
Quarrel with a little bit. Yeah,
you're gonna go out there protest like those oil people.
I've been wrong.
Glue your thing to the.
I've been wrong so much in the past, and now all I can say is that I can't say. There's very little stuff I can say definitively yes or no to.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I could always be wrong. The stuff that that I believe are to be true, I could think of, I could realize to be wrong tomorrow, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, even being able to admit that you're wrong, it's 10:51, so we've done 40 minutes.
40
so
minutes.
Got
Time just flies.
It does fly when you having disagreements.
Yeah.
But I think that's a beautiful thing, being able to willingly admit that you could be wrong.
Mm.
Like, the amount of problems in my life that have been solved just by me not dying on a hill. You know what I mean? Like, someone's like I have this.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, don't die on a hill.
Yeah, just make sure you die on the right hill.
Yeah, the one that isn't flooding. No, I just think, like, let's say if you go into an argument with someone and you're willing to be wrong, it's fucking sweet. It's chill. And then also when they say, hey, you fucked up, like they come at you with all this energy, like, oh, I can't believe you did that, Ryan. And you're like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
When you remove your identity out of your ideas.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. Yeah. And that's.
Oh, two for two.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I used to have vicious political arguments with people. At the end of the day, like no one's better for it. So it's good. They're cool conversations to have. They help your relationships, but when they become vitriol and they affect your relationships, no one's making any money from it. It's not solving either of your problems any more than it did before the conversation.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so
it's fun though, eh? Is it part of you a little broken in the sense that you like to see the chaos and the interaction a little bit, like stir the pot just to see what their brain does?
I used to do that.
I do that.
I used to do that. Lately, I try to listen to far more than
you got humbled.
Stuff.
You got humbled by this business thing, I think.
I mean, it's not humility. I'm like, well, if I'm somewhat comfortable in some opinions I hold, it's because I learned at some point. And if I don't listen, I'll stop learning. Therefore, I'll be less and more comfortable in new opinions that I would probably hold in the future. So, yeah, it's look. I mean, disagreements are cool. I love debates, as you can probably say.
Yeah, I can sense. Yeah,
but I've had a few of those ones where they got quite vitriol and emotional and just vicious. And no one was better for it.
Wow, did you start like doing that spit thing where you're like standing in front of them and like you're just so angry and just like it's just coming out and you're seeing red, or was it them to you?
They were definitely red to me. I think I probably kept relatively. I've always kept a bit more calm, but it has affected the relationship later. I think.
Yeah. Oh, they get fired up. Like just even. I don't know. Like disagreeing with someone, it's such a fascinating thing. That Jocko Willink. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, he's big Navy SEAL guy.
Yeah, legend.
Yeah.
He says the longest way around is the shortest way home.
Yeah.
And I find that an argument. I've never won an argument. Like technically, I've bent them to my will, and then they've lost. Like I've lost something, in a sense, because of the way they view you.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no set rules in it, right?
No, you can just fuck with it. It's not hard. Like
you make the rules as you go, so it's hard to win a game. That's
it's unfolding.
Shaky grounds. Yeah.
Well, even like I think there's power in listening. So I find, especially even now, like I find it hard to land with people sometimes, and I need to consciously try and listen. Yeah. Like I will interrupt you sometimes, or I'll be thinking of what's going to come next, but I won't experience it as it is.
Yeah.
And I find that in an argument, often that's what's happening, is you're both talking at each other. Though winning the argument and also resolving the argument will come from actually understanding them and them actually landing.
Yeah.
What do you think it helps you win arguments? What's your recipe? Can you win an argument? Should you argue? Is there a point?
Well, it depends what it's for. I mean, if you're a lawyer and you're in a court, your job is to win arguments, of course. But if you're on a marketing agency like myself, then at the end of the day, you put your best advice to the client to the best of your abilities, and they make the choice for it. You're not trying to convey. You're not trying to win an argument with them. So it depends on the content. And if you're with a friend or with a family member, well, the whole point of communication is to build a better, stronger relationship. And if you're with a stranger, well,
fuck him.
Yeah, fuck him. Well, I think you're gonna be friends. I mean, people kind of know when they're gonna be friends or when they're not. And within the first, I don't know, within the first period of contact, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. If you're not going to be friends, who gives a shit about what they think or what you think, etc. You're going to go off in your own way, live your own life, etc. But if you care, well, if you're going to be friends, you probably agree more than you disagree on. Therefore, you're probably not going to argue too much on it. It depends. I mean, it depends if you're being paid for it, to be honest. Yeah.
Do you argue less if you're paid more? Do you argue less if you're paid more?
Do I have a price? Absolutely, I have a price. Do I argue less if I pay? Like if you or lawyers get paid to argue, and if they argue effectively, they get paid more. I don't understand the question.
Well, in the sense, like, let's say you have a really, really big client. Do you toe the line more, or does your character and your substance override the material gain?
Well, I try to just simplify it down. This is my best advice, no matter who you were.
Oh yeah.
You're a grown-up person. Make your choice. With marketing, there's it takes as much budget as he throws at it, and there's enough marketing jargon for you to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's brand awareness, it's impressions, it's clicks, all that stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not, etc. But you say, okay, this is where you are. This is what we're this is what we think the barometers of success. This is what we think success are. Do you agree with this? Okay, yes. This is how we think we should get there. Do you agree with this? Yes. Cool. No. Okay. How do you want to do it? X, Y, and Z. Okay, with X, Y, and Z, we can either agree to achieve these goals or not. If not, these are the goals that we can achieve with X, Y, and Z. Do you want it or not? Okay, or no?
Yeah, I think that's something you said off air as well. The responsibility lies in the individual that made the choice, as long as you clearly define the choice.
Yeah.
Because I find that hard. It's like, I feel like if I'm not the one delivering the outcome, making sure that it happens, then it's a fail. And in actual fact, as long as I deliver on what I said I would, then it lies in their responsibility.
I think my business partner said it well. I said, look, at the end of the day, Farbod, we're not shrinks for anyone's business.
Okay.
Don't think we are. If you go in that territory, then you end up taking way too much responsibility and delving into the territory you just spoke of, which start to take ownership for stuff that's not really your territory, not really your jurisdiction to think about. I think that's what you were referring to, right?
Yeah. Well, we've done a whole last podcast now.
Oh, okay. Time passes quick. We have a good time.
We're combative time. It was fun. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And we're done.
Yeah.